tonight.
Great day, everyone. Great day, everyone. How are you doing today? I want to welcome you to an amazing episode of the Talk to Me Chef podcast. I'm your host, Chef Diamond McNulty, founder and CEO of Chef Diamond and Friends, which teaches kids how to cook. You know, we got to have our youth and bring families all together inside of the kitchen. Today on the Talk to Me Chef podcast, we get to share an amazing journey of not only a chef, right? A successful woman, right? Bachelor's degree, 2 master's degree, currently working on her PhD. And she is the creator of I Am Uniquely Created book and nonprofit. Let's bring her in. Come on in, Chef Mical St. Clair. How you doing today?
I'm good, Chef. How are you?
Thank you for joining me. I'm outstanding and getting
Absolutely.
better.
Absolutely. That's all we can do is get better.
Cheers to that.
That's all we can do is get better.
Thank you for joining me. I'm excited to share your story. Not only just the I Am Uniquely Created, because once everyone that digs a little bit deeper into it, but just your entire culinary journey. Is there anything you want to share with our audience before we get started?
I guess learning about me, you'll learn about my journey and kind of who I am.
Yeah, it's time to inspire some young chefs. Let's do it. Let's do it. So what inspired you to become a chef?
Actually, I grew up watching my mom cook, and I grew up watching her never, cook from a box, or, she would kind of look at a recipe and she'd say, and she would make it her own. So for me, that was where my spark came. I used to either want to be a pediatrician or a chef, and then I realized I am very squeamish and I don't like blood. So chef quickly rose to the top of the list.
Right. That was it. You already,
Yeah.
hold on.
I can't do it. And I'm like, I feel when other people get pricked and stuff like that, I feel it. So
You feel it.
I wouldn't make it long in that career at all.
But at least you knew it. But it's great. Those early exposures truly matter, especially watching. I used to watch my grandmother inside the kitchen, and that really inspired me. Can you share a story of your first time or your first remembrance inside of the kitchen?
I think I started cooking at about 7. Even with all my uniqueness, I would stand on stools and I would watch my mom or me and my brother get in the kitchen and kind of create. My mom was a mom that's she's retired military now, and she always worked 2 and 3 jobs to make sure that we had. So a lot of times, in the 80s and 90s, it wasn't a thing to have the kids at the house while you were at work. So me and my brother would get in the kitchen together and kind of create. So I would stand on a stool and get whatever I couldn't reach, or he would help me, get what I couldn't reach. And we would kind of create to make sure. I mean, even though my mother cooked 6 days a week, we would still go in there, want to play around and cook. And I was the kid that would cook all my friends' food in the neighborhood. It wouldn't be sandwiches. I would be pulling out the good stuff, and my mom get home like, so you had to give them the steak and the like, I work hard for that little piece of steak. You couldn't give them a bologna sandwich. And I'm like, they were hungry. So I did this, So I started pretty young doing that.
You are hilarious, Jeff. I'm telling you. But that's the what's special about you, right? Even coming up inside in the industry, who has been one of your greatest mentors on your culinary journey?
I have had a lot, if we're being honest. But the one who actually allowed me and gave me that open door to go to culinary school was Chef Jeff Henderson. I know me and you know each other, but Chef Jeff gave me $20,000 along with Food Network to go to culinary school. I didn't know how I was going to pay for culinary school. I didn't know anything. I just knew that I was supposed to be there. So when he ran that scholarship contest through the Art Institute of Atlanta, it literally took me 6 times to submit that application. It wouldn't go. And I literally went in the administrator's office and typed it up word for word in the system, not just uploading, but in the system at the last minute, and submitted it before the deadline. Like, wow. I just knew that I was supposed to be there. And God told me He was going to make a way. And that was the only school at the time that offered a bachelor's as it related to
Wow.
culinary. And I knew with all my uniqueness that I wouldn't be able to be in anybody's kitchen for 20 years, right? Not on a consistent basis. So, me getting my bachelor's was a way for me. It was always a goal for me to build upon it and do other things.
Now that speaks so much volumes, and I want the audience to know because we talk about I am uniquely created, right? Not
Okay.
only are we just sharing your culinary journey, so they inspire those young chefs that may be uniquely created. Let's talk a little bit about your journey. Tell us your story on how your upbringing was to becoming uniquely created.
So I have cerebral palsy. I was diagnosed at about 14 months. So in the 80s, they used to do what's called an amniocentesis, where they would stick the needle through the belly button of the mother's stomach, draw fluid to check for deformities, Down syndrome, all of the things. Well, when they happened to do mine, they tapped my brain, right? And that's how I got CP. And my mom would take me to different doctors. And at the time, my father was stationed. He's from Alabama, and that's where we were living was Alabama. After coming from California, so by the time she found a doctor to say yes, this is what it is, and this is why. Most of them were unwilling because we're black and they weren't willing to stand in court with us, right? By the time she found somebody that was willing, the statute of limitation was out. It had ran out. But luckily, she found Shriners Children's Hospital, and they did 4 of my 6 surgeries. So, Crippled Children's of Alabama, which is now known as Easter Seals, um,
Mm,
did my first 2, and then Shriners did my last 4,
mm,
which enabled me to be able to do everything that I wanted, um, and that I want to do currently, because they told my mother I would never walk. And I said, I don't think we're going to go with that diagnosis. We'll figure it out. And her goal was always to make sure that I could walk across the stage when I graduated high school unassisted, no wheelchairs, no anything. That was her original goal. So we would drive back and forth to South Carolina because they have a hospital in Greenville, South Carolina. If we could not get there, Shriners has like meet points that you can get on a
mm.
bus with other families, and they come and get you. They pay for your hotels, they pay for your food, they wait for you to see the doctor, and they drop you back at that meet point so that you can get home. So there really isn't an excuse for you, not for your child not to be able to be seen. Um,
Right.
so we did that for years. I think I
Wow.
went there from the time I was 2 until I was about 19. They wanted to do one last surgery, and I just refused. I'm like, look, the world gonna get what they get at this point. I don't have it in me to do another one. I've had my lower body completely restructured, heel cords, knees, you name it. I've pretty much had it done, and Shriners never charges for their services. So all my surgeries were done for free, which is, a blessing,
Hmm.
because it could have been different. So I'm thankful that my mother is a researcher, and that's where I get it from, and was able to find a safe space for me to get the kind of care that I needed and that a lot of kids need. So when you see
Right.
those guys with the Shriners hats on the side of the road, they really are collecting for that hospital. That hospital is amazing. They have a hotel at the top of the hospital so that parents can stay, and then they have a Ronald McDonald House down the street for, kind of overflow. Um, but I, my mother didn't give me shortcuts as a kid. If I had a surgery and I had to learn how to walk and I was calling myself being pitiful, Mom, I'm thirsty, I'm hungry. And she's like, okay, you walk and you get it and use your walker to get back and I'll carry the food back. But we're gonna get this done. So
Mm.
essentially I've learned to walk again 6 times.
Wow.
Um, which, I've had cash from the hips down. I've been homeschooled because, in the 90s, although we were supposed to be ADA compliant, we can't necessarily say that we always were. So there were times
Right.
that I could not go to school because my wheelchairs didn't fit in the bathroom, you know.
Uh,
And it was heartbreaking as a kid because you just want to be normal, right? Whatever that
right.
perception of normal is, and you want to be with your friends. But the friends I had growing up, the family, and that was really me learning about a village. They would go trick or treating for me. When there would be holidays, they would go and they would do it in doubles. And I mean, that probably gained them more access to the treats, but they would come back with a bag for me, right? And we got you, and my mom would do extra things like hire Santa Claus to come to the house so that I didn't
Right.
miss out on things. So, and when I wasn't having surgery, I was outside running, playing, jumping, flipping, dipping. I was doing everything my brother was doing, everything both of my brothers was doing. I was doing everything that they were doing, plus some. So I've always had people placed in my life when I needed them to be placed in my life. You know, um,
Wow.
People don't see
That's
cerebral
awesome.
palsy when they see me. They just see a little, maybe a little limp, maybe a little walk a little funny. And I have to say,
Yeah.
I have CP. And they're like,
Yeah,
excuse
you
me. I'm
can't tell.
like, oh, okay, no. And then because people relate it to mental incapabilities and
Mm,
wheelchairs and all of those things. And honestly, if we're being honest, they related to Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump didn't have
mm,
CP. Forrest Gump had
right.
polio. But
Mm,
in their mind,
they connect
it's the
that.
same thing. I had to tell a friend one time, I said, can you stop telling people I have polio? I don't. I don't. I
I
told them
don't.
what Forrest Gump had. I don't. Thank you. I appreciate you, advocating for me, but that's not that.
You know,
Please.
you know, your journey, right? When you think about it, overcoming and actually having a mother, right? So that's why I love her. Is having a mother that continue to encourage and push
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
to not settle for
Yeah.
what was
Yeah.
placed on you, right?
Yeah.
But knowing that there was more, and here you are, you're one of the most active executors I know, right? When it
Can't
comes
sit still.
to
And I
working.
think it comes from me having to sit still as a kid and having to
Mm,
heal. And once I was in a position to not have to, like, I begged my mother at 14, can I please get a job? Please, please sign the paper.
mm,
My first job was at Captain D's. In my mind, it was because I was going to be able to buy the school clothes I wanted because I was grown, forgetting who my mother was. It didn't work out the way I thought it was, but that's okay. Okay. I had a
right.
job and I was working. I started out, I've always pretty much worked in food until,
Mm,
you know, between states, but until I jumped into education. I've done small other things, but most of my time has been spent
right.
in the food arena, whether it's front of the house, back of the house, it's always
Yeah.
been in food. So that's always
Well,
been my passion.
I love that too, because now everyone gets a chance to really know your journey.
Mhm.
We know what inspired you to become a chef. But once you got into that industry, and you had that opportunity to get that scholarship, how did you discover your signature style of cooking, if you did?
Um, I think I wouldn't say that I have a signature style. I would say that I'm a chameleon, that I can
Mm,
adapt to just about anything.
yeah.
In culinary school, I worked two jobs to make sure that I had the knowledge that I needed to have. And you listen, the coin, because I was living on my own. All right. So I had to make sure that the bills could be paid. But I've worked under master chefs. I've worked at BET. I've worked at CNN. My last industry job before I left the industry, kitchen wise, professionally, was Coca-Cola headquarters. Like I was, I've worked in hospitals, I've worked in nursing homes, I've kind
Yeah.
of placed myself in all the arenas. So, like, I know front of the house, I know back of the house. I was literally always working. Like,
Wow.
that's, and to this day, I'm always working. And that's okay. That's,
That's
you
awesome,
know,
though.
I'd like to do that and I'd like to inspire. Even with education, you would think it would be a little easier.
Yeah.
Um, and I always say education chose me because this
Mm,
was not on my bingo card. Like, not even a little bit. Once I left the kitchen, I worked for the VA for a little while and I was bored to
yeah.
pieces, to pieces bored. I wasn't using my degree. I was just like, okay, what am I supposed to do? And although I was helping veterans, I was contracting, my family comes, all my family members are veterans. So, I mean, that's a good
Mm,
thing. But I was literally, my husband Timothy started in
yeah.
education first, and he was
Yeah.
working for APS. And I don't know where my resume got inserted into the matrix, but I literally was working at the VA, and I got a call from a CTA director, Dr. Blackwell, and he said, "I have your resume. Do you want to teach?" And I was like, "How did you get it? Where did it? Who did it?" Kind
Right.
of set me
Who?
up. So I went and I interviewed, and of course they hired somebody with more experience, right? That makes sense. I've never been a teacher. Like, why wouldn't you hire somebody with experience? The person never showed up.
Wow.
God aligned it. Never
They
showed
didn't
up.
even show up.
And he called me back. He was like, "Look, I'm gonna be honest. I want you to come in and interview again." When I got there, he said they never showed up. And he was like, "You were our second pick. You just didn't have as much experience." So I said,
Mm,
"Okay." He said, "But if you want the job is yours." I lived in Henry County. I drove to Greene County, Georgia, which is going towards Athens, 80
right.
miles each way every day for a year and a half to begin my journey in education. And they literally told me, "Whatever your husband is teaching this week, same." And that was my I would take his lesson plans and I would adapt them to what I was doing, adapt them to everything that I was doing. And the kids didn't know what I didn't know what I was doing. You don't know if I'm not telling the truth in here. We just gonna make it up as we go. But they were cooking. The kids, it was a real Greene
Yeah.
County is a real small town. Like when I got there, they're like, "Whose cousin are you?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Am I supposed to be somebody's cousin? Like what?"
Right.
You know, my first event, the first day, I had a taste of Greene County. I had to go get the food that weekend from them and grill at my house to make
Wow.
the food. And it was over 800. And I didn't know these kids from a can of paint. Just two kids volunteered to help me. First day out the gate, we
Wow.
doing a taste of Greene County. Like I just jumped in first. And the
that's
kids,
that's that's special.
the kids grew to love me. When I left, their parents didn't want me to leave. I said, if y'all can pick this
Mm,
school up and move it a little closer to where I live, we might can work this out. But
yeah.
I had to move closer to where I was. It was a lot to drive
To
that
travel.
way, back and
Hmm.
forth. But that was my introduction into education, and I never looked back. I love kids. Kids,
Right.
I,
So
I can do
I
kids
was
all day.
I would say that was the turning point in your
Mhm,
career, right?
mhm. Absolutely,
Mm. Now,
absolutely.
here you are, you're educating the kids.
Mhm,
Let's talk a little bit about the craft, your craft, right?
mhm,
Because now you're educated.
mhm,
Um, your bachelor's, two masters,
mhm.
and now you're in the industry. What was the most challenging experience that you've had, or maybe preparing a
I-
dish
in the world of education or preparing a dish,
and
because I have
preparing a dish?
so working under a master chef. I learned really quickly to not tell him that I didn't know how to do something, because he would assign me to that thing that I didn't know how to do, and I would do 3,000 of it. Like I
Mm,
wasn't familiar with brick dough, clear dough, and how to work with it. And in country clubs, the plate ups are 2, 3,000, 1,500, 2, 3,000 at a time. And I'm like, "Chef, what's that?" And he's like, "Brick dough." And I'm like, and he knew I was in culinary school, but at the level of master chef, you have earned the right to be whoever you want to be, whether that's the
hmm.
villain or the hero, right? So he, although it was hard, he knew I wasn't going to back down, right? So if he
Right,
said I
right.
needed 1,500 of these by 2:30, your fingers better move quick and you better not stop moving. Yes, chef. And I would get over there and I would watch somebody do it once and I would figure it out.
Yes.
That's just, I've always learned trial by fire. I've never
Wow.
in industry really been trained. Even from my first like industry job, I staged
Hmm.
one day and he hired me, and I nobody I would watch people and what they were doing and
Mm,
learn what was correct and what wasn't correct, and then I began to do it the correct way. But there's
right.
never been a job that I had true training. It's always been, even my
You have to,
current
that's
job,
that's
it's
the
been trial
instinct
by
you gotta
fire.
have as a chef. Those are the instincts.
Yeah. And you learn to pivot in the world of culinary and you learn to
Yeah.
pivot in education. When I got to Clayton County, they gave me a class full of DES kids or special education kids.
Hmm.
Um, 18 kids, no
Hmm.
paraprofessional. They're all supposed to have one. Some were nonverbal. Some were, okay, you thought this was going to break me. Let's fix
Yeah.
this. I had no, well, I had a TA at the time, but he really wasn't, what I needed as far as a TA went. I would, if they're nonverbal, I would teach them how to sanitize, how to sweep, how to wipe off tables. We would do product
Mm-hmm.
identification. When my trucks would come, I would let them help me unload it. When it came to knife skills, I found knives that were a little bit more dull. I know for us that's dangerous, but for them that was a little safer than getting a fresh
Mm-hmm.
sharp knife. And if we were
Yeah.
cooking, I would let them mix, I would let them measure out the ingredients, and I would slide it in the oven. We would cater. I was the only culinary school in culinary program in the county. So we would concession stands, football, basketball, we would sell plates to raise money for FCCLA. So
Yeah.
whether it was them creating the menus and them being, the front of the house, welcoming the people or getting with one of my general ed students and helping deliver, there was
Yeah.
always something because you can have an IEP or be in special ed because you have behavioral issues. So if you show your ankles good enough, they're going to put you in special ed because there's money tied
Mm.
to that. But the kids really quickly learn that I'm a big kid like you. We're going to be childish together. Okay. So you choose what kind of day we going to have. Okay.
That's
Either we're going to come
awesome.
in here and we're going to act right and we're going to have fun, or I'm going to have to be an adult and
Right.
everybody going to be in here sitting and looking real lame and mad, including me. So
Right.
what kind of day are we going to have?
But
And that's
that's the
always been my way of educating. It's always been the way.
but that's the awesome thing about you, right? Because you can navigate various you can navigate any room that
Mhm.
you walk into. Now, can you share a time that you faced a major setback in your career and how did you overcome it?
Um, I think um, getting chefs to certain chefs, not all chefs, certain chefs when I started out in the kitchen to believe in my abilities because I walked different and because I had
Mm-hmm.
CP, and getting chefs to learn how to speak to me correctly because some people, when you're an angry chef and you're the Chef Ramsay, kind of scenario,
Mm-hmm.
and you need a job, you let chefs talk to you any kind of way. I'm never
Mm.
gonna be that girl. I can't do
Yeah.
it. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if I went to bed knowing I let somebody talk to me crazy like that. Like, you don't have to speak to a person recklessly to get them to do what you want
Yeah.
them to do.
Mm-hmm.
Pre my son, pre TJ days, oh, listen, listen. Okay, so I had to teach people how to handle me. If I don't
Mm-hmm.
ask you for help, don't offer it. Did I ask you for
Yeah.
that? So, and I even do that in my current position. I sit on a lot of diversity boards because just because you are unique in whatever that uniqueness is, if we are not asking for the help, we don't need you to be a
Don't.
safety. And a lot of times
Mm.
that's really what it is. People fear what they don't know, right? So if you ask me what's wrong or why I walk like this and I tell you, automatically feel the need to protect me. I didn't ask you for that. I asked you to let
Mm.
me do my job. And if I need your help or if I have a question, I'll
Right.
ask you. So
Right.
for me, it's about teaching people how to treat me and how
Yeah.
I'm willing or not willing to be handled in the workplace and personally. So
Right.
that was overcoming that challenge. And chefs are a little spicy at the mouth, and it's just certain things um, that I can't handle. So I had to teach them, like, please don't do that. You get one please though. That initial please, that's what I have for you. Okay. After that, either we're gonna and see, I'm a navigator. I'm not gonna get mad in the way that you think I'm gonna get mad. I'm gonna go to HR and I'm gonna put paperwork on you. So just in case I have to go the other way, there is a trail that says
Yeah.
on this date, and this date, this is what happened. And there was no resolve. So it's about, and that's what I teach kids. You don't have to, everything doesn't warrant a response, right?
Mm.
Sometimes it warrants an action, but it doesn't have to be a loud action. It can
Yeah.
be a quiet action that covers just you. They don't even have to know that you went and told principal so and so anything. You can send
But
principal
sometimes you
so
got to
an email.
communicate. You have to communicate, like you said,
Yeah,
especially um, being unique. Uh,
yeah,
some of them may not know how to deal with certain
mhm,
situations. So just hearing your story is important.
yeah. And some parents don't know how to advocate for their children, right?
Mm,
Because they didn't grow up around somebody who was unique,
mm,
or if they did, they grew up with them being mistreated and scooted off to the side, right?
right.
Sat in the back room, sat off to the side, so they think that's okay for other people to do that. I didn't grow up seeing it.
Mm,
I grew up I grew up seeing my mother be like, "Why can't she do it? What's the
right.
problem? Did she say she wanted to do it? Oh, okay, let's figure that out then, because we're sitting her off to the side is not an option, you know." So
Mm.
I try to teach, a lot of times I'm more of the parent to some of these kids than their parents. The parents are calling me like, "Can you get so and so together?" Not exactly like you calling me. Wait a minute, kind of scenario. But if I'm gonna be here for the kids, I'm gonna be here for the kids. So it's for me, it's about
Yeah.
teaching people the language and how to
Hmm.
navigate people who are uniquely created.
Now, what advice would you give someone starting a culinary career?
Um, you have to be patient with yourself and others, um, and you cannot be timid.
Mm,
Being timid in the culinary industry, you can have a good heart, but you cannot
right.
be timid.
No.
It's not gonna work out. Okay,
Right.
this might not be the career because there will be days depending on what realm of the industry that you're in, you won't get a lunch break. That lunch break is you walking around the trash can with a plate in your hand. And when
Mm.
you complete that circle, you have to drop that plate, right? And you have to get back to doing what you lunch break. You're gonna call who on me? Call them. But when you call them, make sure you don't come back tomorrow, okay? That's what we're gonna do. I've worked for those type of chefs. If the bus was late, if your car broke down, you didn't have a job because you should have
Yeah.
made provisions for that. So you can't be, as my mother say, thin skinned. You can't be thin skinned. And you just have to be willing to pivot. And that's in the world of education, that's life, that's everything. You have to be willing to pivot when something doesn't work. You have to be willing to make the changes on the fly,
Mm.
or else you'll be in more pitfalls than peaks. In the culinary industry, you want to be peakish, right? You don't want to
Right.
always be in the valley. You want to be up there sometimes. So, um, patience and the ability to pivot is what I would say.
That's important for our youth to know. Though when you're entering this industry, you can't be thin skinned.
Mm,
Can't be
mm,
thin skinned at all. But
mm,
it's not how it used to be though. Chefs are not who they used to be, but there's still
mm.
some out there. What
Yeah.
cuisines and cultures inspire your cooking the most?
Um, Honestly, a little bit of everything. I tell people I'm a little bit country, I'm a little bit rock and roll, right? So my mom,
Mm,
although born in Germany, she grew up in California, Compton, Inglewood kind of area.
hmm.
So she had her childhood in the 60s and 70s. And then my father's from Brundage, Alabama. That's about this big, right? So you get a little bit of both. And then for us, because we've lived in Korea, we pull from that kind of cuisine heavily because that's what we grew to love living there. So,
Mm,
um, being, and I'm the type of person, if I see it, I'm so greedy and I love food so much. I dream about food and then I wake up and figure out how to make what was in my dream because I'm greedy and I like to eat. Daggone it. So it's for me, it's food in general. But if I had to
right.
pick, it would be more of a southern, um, Korean type,
Mm, mm,
base. You know, my best friend, my sister is Panamanian, so I pull from her style of
hmm.
cooking too. So I am just a chameleon kind of the culinary industry. I don't have one favorite thing. I like being in industry and working the different departments, the garmagers, the butchers, the bakers. I like doing that, but I don't have a specific cuisine. I like food. I tell kids I went to
Right.
culinary school so I could eat and not get in trouble. Can't get in
What's the
trouble if you eat.
weirdest what's the weirdest combination that you've ever tried?
Hmm. I tried a lot of weird things in Korea. I don't know. Like, cause
Right.
sometimes the barbecue would taste like they had just killed the pig or just killed the cow. Like it was gamey. They like they
Fresh.
had killed it in the back and
Uh,
put it on. Like it hit you right there. Like it. Wait a minute, kind of scenario.
is this
Um,
still alive?
it's some, but in a lot of the Korean barbecue spots, they bring it to you still moving. You gotta cook it. So
Mm.
that's another part of not being timid. Hey, they have brought my food still a wiggling a little bit. So as long I'm a seafood kind of girly, so as long as it's fresh, um, you know, I'm the type of person I'm willing to try anything once.
I
Let me
love
say
it.
almost
I love it.
anything. Almost
What's a skill or technique that you're currently learning right now, or something that you want to create?
anything. I am I'm still learning the power of the pivot in my current job. So I am getting more into the research based side of education and things, right? So
Mm,
grant writing and structure building, curriculum building, um, because that's a part of my job. That's what I do. Um,
mm,
Having to be the agent in the county in a large county like DeKalb County, it's not always the easiest of jobs, but I love it. So, um, leveling up and creating programming and curriculum that fits the needs of the kids that I serve, whether it's the top half of the cab, which is Brookhaven, or the bottom half, which is Decatur. Um, those communities are can be vastly different. So,
mm,
creating programming that works in both scenarios and creating 4-H opportunities for those students that are uniquely created is definitely my goal. I'm working with hospitals, children's hospitals, so that the kids can still have the programming there, so they don't miss out. Um, I know what that feels like, so I don't want a kid to feel like two ships passing in the night. Their friend may be talking about 4-H summer camp, and they're like, "I can't go." Yes, you can.
right,
Yes, you can. Let's figure it out.
right.
So
That's
I'm all
important.
about diversity and building where I am right now.
Wow. Well, what legacy do you hope to leave in the culinary world?
Um, I think my legacy will be a mix of both, right? So education world and culinary, because I intertwine what I took from culinary and infuse it into the education world. So I really just want people to know that there aren't any limitations. Um,
Mm,
when they see me or know me, I don't want them to think powerhouse, but I want them to see somebody that doesn't quit, that doesn't give up because
mm,
of one failure. Um, because if that was the case, I could be in a wheelchair somewhere, and there's nothing wrong with being in a wheelchair. Um, but being there by choice and by force is two different things, right?
right.
I could be lazy. I could be like, you know, not take care of my
Mm,
body, not do all of the things that forces me to be in a situation where I am dependent on a wheelchair. So I try to teach people to do everything you can to be independent, because there are some people that aren't able to be independent. There are some people that
right,
have to be dependent on others. And so if you're in a space that you can be independent, be there as long as you can. Like,
right.
and help people who can't be in that space, because there are people who can't be in that space. So that's the
Mm.
legacy I want to live of, you know, helping and teaching about diversity and overcoming obstacles.
Well, you're doing that, and you're in the sweet spot to do that even more, to impact so many lives. So everything has worked out just like it's supposed to work out.
Yeah.
So I gotta thank you not only for sharing your story, but also continuing to be that beacon on a day to day basis, Chef. You know, So whenever we talk, it's always something great.
I-
Always something great happening. Is there anything you want to leave with our audience today?
um, I just read the book, The Mountain Is You. So that's, learning how to get out of your own way. Sometimes when you have a dream or a goal or whatever that looks like, that spark, um, and listening to the pastor at church, sometimes when people fail you or drop you, so to speak, you have to learn to let that drop go in order to get out of your own way, to be able to do the things that is purposeful in your life. You know what I mean? If you're holding on to what didn't happen or what should have happened, or you can't get what's going to happen. So sometimes you have to
Mhm.
learn to get out of your own way in order to get what's there for you, because it's already lined up, it's already written. You just have to do the work to get there.
Wow. That's so much. I'm telling you, get out of your own way and continue to take action. Chef, your
Hmm.
journey, man, I can't wait to see all of the lives that we're going to continue to impact, especially this year, because we're on a mission. But
Absolutely.
just sharing your story, I got to thank you. Especially, I Am Uniquely Created. That book and the organization is going to impact so many lives in
Thank
Georgia and across the world. So thank you for taking action and stepping out on faith.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Aw- Awesome, Chef. So I greatly appreciate you. Everyone else, I'm going to add your information so how everyone can contact you. And then we'll see y'all next time, chefs, inside of the kitchen. Y'all have a wonderful day. Thank you.